What are the top 5 misconceptions 5 sensories have about us as 6 sensories? There are so many assumptions, it's laughable. But one of the top 5 assumptions that 5 sensories make about us as 6 sensories is number one, we're naive. And you might think, oh, why would we be naive? We're supposed to be intuitive. We're supposed to be able to anticipate what's going to happen next, and we can more accurately. However, 5 sensories think that we're naive to even assume that we can try, and they doubt our true abilities, which I'll get to in my next point. And so they think that their games and manipulations are going to work on us by default because we have beliefs that they don't understand. And the opposite could be true. We're typically a lot smarter in relationships than they believe us to be, and while we may not play games the way that they do, we have a good knack for staying out of trouble that 5 sensories don't always have, and that's why they get so much pain when they're engaging with relationships with other 5 sensories. The next assumption 5 sensories make about us as 6 sensories is that what we're saying that we can intuitively feel the truth about a situation or discern wisdom on a deeper level than most people can perceive is that it's not true. They assume that they can trick us because what we're saying is not true. Therefore, there's no way that we can be potentially smarter than them. And it's not that we're intellectually smarter than them. It's just that we're pretty good at sussing out their bad behavior and reading their true intentions. And they find that out quite quickly when we stop talking to them after they've behaved badly. They realize that we're continuing to be successful sharing our positive message about wisdom that comes from our true heart, not the emotions on the top layer of our greedy hearts. And then they realize that, hey, this person actually might be saying something of value after all. But by the time they realize it, they've usually insulted us enough that we don't have time really to spend on them. So if you're a 5 sensory and you come across intuitive content and you don't believe it, it's okay, you don't believe it. But I wouldn't offend a 6 sensory if I were you, because you just may turn around and awaken one day and you realize that it is true and that you don't have any support, you don't have any friends helping you through this challenging time when you're realizing you do have a spiritual sense. And the very early phases of awakening your spiritual senses can be challenging. You can doubt yourself, you can have strange feelings and perceptions about the universe that no one else is having, and so you feel like you're alone. But truthfully, it's not that unusual. Many people have purported to have experiences during meditation, for example, where they see flashing lights or angels. But when we're meditating, we're not trying to focus on those things. We're trying to empty the mind at that time, so we don't pay attention to those things. But I just wanted to draw your attention that these experiences are more common than you would think, and you don't necessarily have to be in a meditative state to see these kinds of things. But people might see them and dismiss them as they might be crazy, or it was just their imagination when they were a child. Our reaction might be to shut down as a 6 sensory and stop sharing whatever it is we have experienced. Ironically, we're actually safer when we're authentic to who we really are and we do share who we really are with the world. Why is that? Because we're being of service and we're helping people who are also vulnerable and being picked on. And when we come together as a community and we share our experiences, we get stronger together as a community, and 5 sensories can no longer pick on us. When we're willing to set the standard and say, this is the bar that I'm willing to meet a 5 sensory at in relationship, that they have to show up serious, that they're not going to get away with a hookup, that they're not going to be able to insult me or put me down. We set the bar high as a 6 sensory in our relationships, and we expect more from 5 sensories than a hookup or all kinds of bad behavior that are going on in society in this day and age. Then we're going to attract and magnetize the very best behavior out of the 5 sensories. It's not that 5 sensories are always bad. They are different than us. But we can get along and potentially have healthy long-term relationships if we understand their needs and we know how to meet those needs intuitively. And when we meet their needs, we're likely to stay out of trouble and get categorized into some abusive type of relationship. The third assumption that 5 sensories make about us as 6 sensories is that we're extremely cold, because we are slow on the intimacy front. When five sensories call us cold, we shouldn't take it personally like it means that we have no empathy or no feelings, no contributions to give to society. We care very deeply about society. And we just don't want to have our personal relationships screw us up and take us away from our calling as six sensories. The highest forms of help are actually spiritual, in my opinion. It's to guide someone to a more enlightened state and help them accept only the best behavior from others. However, part of it is also in the mundane details. Part of it could be helping the homeless or helping vulnerable animals. You can't be hung up on your relationships, and you do need to be a little bit cold in order to make sure your important priorities get done. So maybe five sensories are a little bit correct that we are cold, but we do warm up if they behave well and they give us the best versions of themselves. The fourth assumption that five sensories make about six sensories, once they figure out we're not naive and we're not dumb and that our sense is real, they may actually assume that we're playing some kind of game or trickery ourselves and that we're not who we claim to be. That maybe intuition is real, but we're not a real intuitive because we're so smart to outmaneuver their games that there's no way that we could belong to that group. We're not vulnerable enough. And that's not true either. Vulnerability can be strength when it's used correctly and when it's shared in a group of trusted people. Vulnerability doesn't work sometimes when you share it with somebody who's not trustworthy. For example, when you're in the dating scene and you don't know people that well. And that's why sometimes vulnerability gets a bad rap. But if you've established trust and you know somebody's a good person and they're a good community who can give you authentic and constructive feedback, then vulnerability and sharing can be a good thing. The thing is, five sensories can see our strong persona online and just assume that we're another logical person who is pretending to be a sixth sensory. The fifth assumption that five sensories make about us as six sensories is that we won't be successful in the long run. Our intuition is going to lead us into trouble somehow, that we'll get cracked down on by some authority figure like a teacher or an employer or a family member, whoever that dastardly authority figure is that they're so afraid of. And the truth is, there's not really any danger in sharing this information. That's just the five sensories perception, and they may protect it till the cows come home and tell you that you must live in this conservative little box that is called normal, that is called five sensory. And it's just not true. And if people are being nasty and negative on your channel, just kick them off.